What if the deadliest weapons of the ancient world were not swords or spears, but fire and poison, elements twisted into instruments of terror? Picture a moonlit sea, calm and dark, when suddenly a roiling inferno bursts forth, flames licking the water's surface, devouring ships like living beasts. Across continents and centuries, a different horror spreads. A silent cloud, invisible yet suffocating, stalking soldiers from the shadows, stealing breath and life. Two empires, two terrifying inventions, two ancient chemical weapons, Greek fire and Han poison gas, each a masterpiece of fear and ingenuity. Their secrets were jealously guarded, their impact devastating, yet history has veiled them in mystery and myth. What do these elemental horrors tell us about the civilizations that wielded them? And what shadows do they cast across the centuries, whispering of human brilliance and brutality intertwined? Sparks on the water, the origins of Greek fire. What if the deadliest weapon of war was a flame that refused to die? Under the dark skies of the 7th century, Constantinople's fate hung by a thread. Arab fleets closed in, their ships like a black tide ready to drown the last bastion of the Roman world. In response, the Byzantines unleashed a weapon born of desperation and brilliance. Greek fire was no ordinary flame. It danced like a living thing, roaring from bronze siphons mounted on ships, spilling onto the water's surface and refusing to be extinguished. Witnesses spoke of a firestorm that swallowed men and vessels whole, a fiery serpent that clung to waves and burned with a hellish hunger. Its formula was a secret guarded with religious fervor, an alchemical mixture of naphtha, sulfur, quicklime, and resin. Some say a Syrian refugee engineer named Callinicus was its creator, but the truth is swallowed by centuries of silence. This weapon was both science and spectacle. The thunderous hiss of the flamethrower, the screams of those consumed, etched in the memories of both victors and victims. More than just a tool of war, Greek fire was a symbol of empire, proof that Constantinople stood not merely by walls, but by a flame that even the sea could not douse. But how did such a secret survive the tides of history? And was its legend fueled by fact or by fear? The breath of death. Han dynasty poison gas. While the Byzantines forged flames on the sea, far to the east, the Han dynasty mastered a different terror, the invisible breath of poison. In the mountain passes and walled cities of ancient China, warfare was not just fought with swords and arrows, but with smoke and sickness. Military manuals from the Han era describe deadly fire smoke attacks that combined burning sulfur, arsenic, and even animal waste to create clouds of toxic gas. In one siege, defenders placed cauldrons of noxious mixtures along the walls, igniting them when the enemy pressed close. A bitter, choking cloud rolled down like a specter, stinging eyes, blistering skin, suffocating lungs. This was not a weapon for spectacle, but for silent, relentless death. It struck fear not with roaring flames, but with the creeping knowledge that death could come unseen and unstoppable. The air itself became the assassin. Yet behind this grim innovation lay a complex philosophy, one that sought swift victory with minimal bloodshed, a calculated ruthlessness guided by strategy rather than fury. What dark wisdom did the Han commanders wield as they sent their enemies into the poisonous mists? Science and secrecy, how they worked. Greek fire and Han poison gas, two weapons born of fire and smoke, yet each a marvel of ancient science and secrecy. The Byzantines mastered petrochemistry long before the word existed. They understood how to mix flammable oils with sulfur and quicklime to create a substance that burned hotter, longer, and underwater. Their bronze siphons, precursors to the modern flamethrower, could project this living fire onto enemy ships, turning the sea into a battlefield of flame and screams. Across Asia, Han military engineers studied mineral poisons and meteorology. They learned how to harness the toxic vapors of arsenic trisulfide and sulfur compounds, releasing them at moments when the wind would carry death toward the enemy. Both empires cloaked their formulas in secrecy. The Byzantine flame was guarded like a holy relic, passed down only to trusted hands. The Han recipes were recorded in military treatises, yet hidden behind layers of arcane language and guarded knowledge. Their disappearance from history is as mysterious as their power. Were these weapons lost to time, or buried deliberately to keep their horrors from being unleashed again? The human cost. Chemical weapons do not just kill, they terrify, torment, and shatter the human spirit. Greek fire was a nightmare no soldier could escape. Accounts tell of men drenched in flames who leapt into the sea, only to find the water itself ablaze, searing skin and lungs alike. The fire clung to flesh and wood, consuming without mercy. Han poison gas brought a slow and merciless death. Soldiers caught in its cloud choked, their lungs burned, eyes swollen shut. Panic swept through ranks like wildfire. Men fought not just enemies, but the poison filling their bodies. These weapons turned battlefields into scenes of horror beyond imagination. They struck at bodies and minds, breaking morale before swords could even be drawn. Yet, amid the terror, stories of courage and despair emerged. Soldiers fighting through smoke, commanders wrestling with the morality of such weapons. How did such cruelty shape the souls of those who wielded and suffered these ancient chemical horrors? War philosophy fear as a tool. To the Byzantines, Greek fire was a divine instrument, a sign that God protected Constantinople. It was a weapon of holy fury, a fire sent from heaven to defend the last Roman bastion. Its terrifying power was woven into the empire's identity, a symbol of resilience and divine favor. In Han China, war was a science. Guided by Sun Tzu's teachings, commanders sought to end conflicts swiftly, efficiently, with as little waste as possible. Poison gas was a tool of strategy, a means to break the enemy's will with minimal prolonged suffering. Both civilizations recognized a brutal truth: war was not just fought with steel, but with fear and psychology. The greatest victory was to shatter an enemy's spirit before the clash of swords. But what happens when fear becomes the master, and the weapons of terror outlast the empires that forged them? The aftermath and legacy. Greek fire's flames lit the pages of legend long after the last Byzantine ship had sunk. Crusaders sought its secret, Arab enemies feared it. Yet the recipe vanished, lost to fire, secrecy, or time itself. Countermeasures emerged, but none could replicate the living inferno. Han poison gas, too, faded from history's forefront, though whispers of toxic smoke lingered in Chinese warfare for centuries. As moral codes evolved, the use of such weapons came under question, their horror dimming in the light of new norms. Both foreshadowed the nightmare of modern chemical warfare, napalm, mustard gas, where science and savagery meet. Their stories warn us of the thin line between invention and atrocity. Are these ancient weapons relics of a brutal past, or echoes of dangers still lurking in human nature? Fire and smoke in the modern mind. Today, Greek fire burns not on battlefields, but in our stories, fantasy epics, legends, and the flicker of imagination. The Han poison gas finds its shadow in the horrors of 20th century trench warfare and beyond. They remind us that human genius is a double-edged sword. The same minds that create life-saving medicine can invent horrors that poison air and water. And in these weapons, born from desperation, ambition, and fear, we see not just the face of war, but the reflection of ourselves. What will we choose to carry forward, the light of knowledge or the darkness of destruction? Conclusion. Greek fire and Han poison gas, two ancient forces of flame and smoke, still haunt the corridors of history. One dazzled the eyes with unstoppable infernos upon the sea. The other stole breath in silence and shadow. They speak of empire's genius and their capacity for cruelty, of human invention wielded as both shield and scourge. In their flames and fumes, we glimpse the fragile line between survival and devastation, between progress and ruin. These weapons are more than relics of war. They are mirrors held up to humanity itself. And as we gaze into them, we must ask, what fires will we ignite for future generations?